The U.S. government is providing an inside look at a shelter used to house detained immigrant children. This former Walmart is now home to more than 1,000 young immigrants who have been separated from their families at the U.S. border with Mexico. Here's Chris Van Cleve.
This newly released government video is giving us a glimpse inside a Department of Health and Human Services facility sheltering children who entered the U.S. illegally. It's the first look inside one of these shelters since the Trump administration instituted a zero-tolerance immigration policy in April that resulted in the separation of children from parents who illegally cross the border with them. The facility is a former Walmart in Brownsville, Texas, not far from the Mexican border, and now is nearly filled to capacity. The video selectively highlights young kids doing outdoor activities, receiving medical care, even the residential pet dog. It houses just boys ages 10 to 17. It's called Casa Padre. It is the largest shelter facility in the U.S. for minors caught illegally crossing the border. And in the last month, the number of boys sheltered here has increased from 1,200 to nearly 1,500. While the majority are kids who arrived at the border unaccompanied, it's estimated about 5%, or 70 boys, are living here because they were separated from their parents at the border.
I would cite Romans 13 to obey the laws of the government.
Today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who enacted the zero-tolerance policy, says it's meant as a deterrent.
Stop crossing the border illegally with children. Apply to enter lawfully. Wait your turn.
At least 658 children were separated from their parents in the first weeks of the new policy. Now there's bipartisan criticism of the policy in Washington.
This is barbaric. This is not what America is, but this is the policy of the Trump administration.
We don't want kids to be separated from their parents. I think I just made that really clear.
At the White House briefing late this afternoon.
Come on, Sarah, you're a parent. Don't you have any empathy for what these people are going through?
Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders sparred with the press corps over the policy.
Our administration has had the same position since we started on day one that we were going to enforce the law.
During Thursday's White House press briefing, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders defended the administration's detention of children. She also blamed Democrats for a lack of change to current policies.
Separation of illegal alien families is the product of the same legal loopholes that Democrats refuse to close, and these laws are the same that have been on the books for over a decade, and the president is simply enforcing them. We're a country of law and order, and we're enforcing the law and protecting our borders. We would like to fix these loopholes, and if Democrats want to get serious about it instead of playing political games, they're welcome to come here and sit down with the president and actually do something about it.
CBS News Capitol Hill producer Rebecca Kaplan is on Capitol Hill for us. So, Rebecca, what are lawmakers saying in response to the growing number of children being separated from their families and detained?
Well, Elaine, as we just heard in Chris's piece a few moments ago, Nancy Pelosi today called this practice barbaric. And Democrats, especially those from the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, have been working to highlight these policies. You've seen lawmakers try to get into these detention facilities. A group of House members held a protest outside of Customs and Border Protection headquarters here in D.C. yesterday. So they've been really trying to amp up the pressure on the administration. Now, today, Speaker Ryan was asked about this for the first time, and he said that he is not comfortable with the current situation, and what he said is he thinks that a legislative fix is required to stop this.
Well, we just heard White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders blame Democrats for current policies. What are some of the proposals lawmakers are working on to fix what she referred to as, quote, loopholes?
So right now we're seeing one effort in the House. They've been working on this compromise immigration bill between moderate and conservative Republicans. We just got our hands on the draft text of that bill today, and one thing under discussion right now is clarifying in this bill that the DHS would no longer be able to separate parents from their children at the border. What's happening right now is when these children come into custody, because of DHS's crackdown, part of the Trump administration crackdown on border crossers, parents are being taken away and children go into custody of Health and Human Services. So this law that lawmakers are looking to debate and maybe pass next week would end that practice and say you can't separate children from their parents when they're brought across the border anymore. Children and parents would go into detention together.
Well, what can we expect from next week's debate?
So what we'll see is the House bring up and debate two separate immigration bills. One is this much more conservative version from Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte. It lowers overall legal immigration levels. It does extend legal status for DACA recipients, but makes it very, very difficult for them to ever get citizenship in the U.S., which has been a demand from the moderate Republicans. It also really beefs up interior enforcement. Now, this compromise bill, which we just saw today, makes a few changes to the system. A big one that President Trump is probably going to like is that it allocates $25 billion for border security, including the wall. And you'll also see it make big changes to the legal system. It would take some of these existing visa categories for the diversity lottery, which is countries that are kind of underrepresented in U.S. immigration, as well as certain family categories like siblings of adult U.S. citizens, and eliminate those categories entirely. Those visas would go into a new pool, which would be based largely on employment and education. And those new types of visas would be given, or people could apply for them if they are DACA recipients or the children of immigrants who are in the U.S. legally right now. One thing that's very interesting in this draft text that they're considering is that they're going to try to tie this border money to these visas so that if the border money shuts off, then these DACA recipients come 6 years from now won't be able to get green cards. So that's what we're going to see them debate in the House next week.
Interesting. Well, what role, Rebecca, will the immigration debate play as we get closer to November's elections?
Well, you could really argue, Elaine, that midterm politics is what got us here in the first place. Moderate Republicans decided that they were going to use this procedural vehicle to try to force a vote on immigration legislation because many of these endangered Republicans, such as Carlos Curbelo of Florida and Jeff Denham of California, have a lot of Hispanic constituents in their districts, and this really matters to them. So they really needed a vote on immigration. Now, a lot of conservative Republicans are saying they absolutely want more border security and want to help the president. You saw today, I talked to Steve King, who is one of the most conservative lawmakers on the Hill when it comes to immigration. He predicted that if the House passes this legislation that gives anything resembling what he calls amnesty to DACA recipients, that the base is going to revolt and hand the House over to Democrats.
All right. Rebecca Kaplan on this highly charged issue. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you, Elaine.